The patriarchy discriminates against non-binary people such as myself.
You're so annoying.
If I'm being truly authentic and I go up to girls like, "Hey, I thought you were really hot and I just wanted to talk to you," like, is that fair? I mean,
no.
the
So
problem is,
I wouldn't go in. So
Don't go
I
in
think
with
that.
that.
Yeah, no, you don't go
Okay.
in with that. But
can I tell you the time that I went on a date with a porn star and she kicked me out of her apartment?
that's
Yeah.
beautiful. That's actually really
So I
inspiring.
was on Tinder.
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's too early.
It's not early enough.
We started 10 minutes early. You were like, I'm ready when you are.
Well, hey, you're
It's
ready. What time do you wake up on the weekends?
like probably 11.
That's terrible for you.
I
What time
s-
do you wake
that's
up? What
not
time
that
do you wake
bad
up?
for you.
What time do you wake up during the week?
Probably like 8 or 9.
Okay. Well, I don't know if you're a fan of Andrew Huberman or not, but you're supposed to wake up at roughly the same time every day. And if you don't do it on weekends, it screws up your circadian rhythm. It takes about like a week to sync. So every time you get up early during the week, but then you screw it up on the weekends, you're hurting yourself.
I think I'll be okay.
That's fair. How are you? How's all the controversy that you're constantly embroiled in? How are you holding up to that right now?
It's a hard job, but somebody's got to do it.
Yes.
No, I don't know how I get myself in these little predicaments. I think
Really? You don't know how you get yourself in certain predicaments?
well, no, especially like I seem to be like a magnet for like really shitty men.
Me included.
No. But there's like I seem to be a magnet for really shitty men. And then chaos ensues. And I stick my nose in places where I maybe shouldn't, and I'm like I take very precarious moves with the people that I like surround myself with. So like I was like, for some reason I was like, yeah, I want to hang out with incels. So I joined Chudlogic's community. You know who Chudlogic is? Like last year. Just like the worst people alive. And I was like, you know what? I want to hang out with these dudes for like whatever reason, maybe mental illness. And then those, they like hate women. Like they actually just hate women. So then so then they became sort of obsessive with me because I was one of like maybe 2 women in their community.
Okay.
And
you know of. Probably a lot of non-binary people too.
Yeah,
sure, which we'll talk about.
Sure. And then the other drama.
Yeah. Listen. I've always been fascinated. I've been fascinated by your sophisticated views on gender, to the degree that they're sophisticated, to the degree we're talking about the same thing. Because the last time you remember the conversation we had the last time we talked, you, me, and Glink, and I think Glink's coming on in probably 30 minutes or something like that. He can join us. Well, first, okay, there's a couple things I want to talk about. I watched the President Sunday debate.
Nice.
I'll withhold comments for now.
Why? Dude,
one
he's
sec.
pissed at me.
Wait, hold on.
So mad.
And you were on the whatever podcast.
Yeah.
Okay, and I got to be honest. That was pretty impressive. I don't really like that guy. What's his name? Eric or
Brian?
When you called him out for like, you said something like, masculinity needs to do this, and you're like, well, you're not chucking spears or you're not hunting shit and stuff like that. That's like you gave it to him straight up. And then all of those other women, or sorry, people with uteruses, I assume. We're like, what? This is such an uninteresting thing. Like, we shouldn't be talking about this, or like, this is such a waste of time. It's like, this is the most interesting conversation that's occurred on this podcast so far.
Yeah. And then I created a chain reaction of women who just went on to debate Brian. Like, since then, there's been like 4 different women who have done the same thing that I did, albeit not as well. Not as entertainingly.
Yeah, well, your autism helps with the argument, I'm assuming.
Yeah, probably.
Okay, but the reason that I bring this up is because the last time we talked, we had a discussion about, and I went back and found the part where we talked about this, of like, you were of the mindset like, you know what, this is just what you do online, what you talk about doesn't matter. Like people's opinions don't change. What effect are you going to have? And then I see you on there with your beret, She Guevara. It's like, bro, that podcast gets what, millions of views plus clips and all that stuff. And I'm sure you were clipped
I went
probably,
viral.
yeah, what, millions or tens of millions of people potentially
Yeah,
at some
tens of
point.
millions.
Right. So do you really think that you don't have an impact?
No, I mean, I think it's hard because TERFs have been like demonized, and for so long, everyone. I think what's holding up a lot of this gender conversation is that people are so scared of being on the wrong side of history.
Mhm.
Because, like, we all saw our parents, when religion was dying, when they were growing up in the 70s or 80s, they had some things that were still like Christian based, where they were like, with gay people especially, they were like, do what you want. Even the most progressive parents would be like, do what you want, just don't do it in front of me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Which I think
And
is the current position of most like conservative people when it
yeah,
comes to
but
gay or transgender people.
sure, but a lot of us, like, progressives grew up seeing that, and we're like, whew, that aged bad, right? And so
Sure.
even though with like this gender shit, most of us, any normal person, has a lot of questions about this shit. Like, it is just this doctrine that is peddled to us, and they've been successful in selling because we're turning our brains off. Like, there's no real merit, there's no real backing behind this like doctrine that they're pushing. It's like
Mhm.
just feelings based off of like conservative gender ideals.
Mhm.
And but we're so scared. The progressives with questions are so scared to speak up about it because they're so scared of becoming their parents, right? They're so scared that like in 10 years from now, it's going to age really, really poorly. And but I think the more people come forward about their questions, the more people are comfortable with having those questions. And then it's sort of like a breadcrumb into, being a gender atheist. I get messages now every single day of women being like, holy shit, like, you changed my life. Like, I can't believe I turned my brain off. 2 years ago, this time 2 years ago, is when the whole conversation was happening around trans women and women's sports. And I remember, because I considered myself a leftist at that time, I remember talking to my fiance being like, yeah, who cares? It's a fucking sport. Who cares about women's sports, right? And he looked at me and was like, like, what? Who cares about women's
Yeah, not very
sports?
progressive.
Yeah, no, he was like, what do you mean? Like, women fought to like have like women's sports, and then I like sort of chewed on that for a while. My like male partners telling me to advocate for women.
Yeah.
And I realized that like even at the expense of women, I am ready to just like do my female socialization pleasantries, like not ask any questions and just let them do whatever.
Yeah, well, this is funny. This is terrible, but also there's funny elements to it, obviously.
Oh no.
Like with so like the discussion of presence. I watched your gender video, by the way. I think it was I think it's pretty good. A lot of people just there are a lot of people that hate you.
Yeah, like regardless
And
of what I do or say.
yeah, and look, I haven't followed all of your controversies. I followed some of them.
Yeah.
I think you would agree. You have not acted in 100% optimal ways 100% of the time.
Oh, totally.
Right.
To be fair, it's also really hard to navigate the position I'm in.
Yeah, well, yes. One of the things that I am like, one of the underlying things I think about and I try to operate by is like, what is the healthy relationship that someone should have with social media in terms of like, how much of me as the authentic person do I need to bring to the table?
Totally.
Versus how much does bringing my authenticity just end up causing me to mistake my personal drama for something that's actually worth talking about or whatnot,
Totally.
right? So there's an important line because you can't be this. I can't stand the disembodied voice video essayist of just like, here are these ideas about this, and this. It's like, okay, no person is like that.
Yeah.
Right? People are motivated to come and talk about whatever ideas they have. But as far as the gender stuff goes, so again, going back to our conversation with Glink,
Yeah.
I didn't just bring you here to say I told you so, but I will say I told you so to some degree. when
About what?
I said the new line, the new marching orders from the left-wing progressives are that it's not that sex and gender are different anymore, and that gender is a social construct and sex is biological. It's that sex is a social construct.
Yeah.
And the
Well,
Rachel
I
McKinnon,
said
Rachel
that in the
McKinnon.
yeah.
No. You said something like nobody really believes this. It's a small minority of people or whatever. And it's
Oh,
like,
dude.
here's Rachel McKinnon on Trevor Noah
Yeah.
saying, I'm not just a woman, I'm a biological female as well.
Yeah.
A biological male, saying I'm a biological female.
Yeah.
And that's the inevitable consequence
Yeah.
of postmodernism. Every category is socially constructed.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's what I talked about that with President Sunday, who brings up Simone de Beauvoir and Judith Butler a lot during it. And really in the video essay, I talk about how, sex becomes a construct and now gender identity becomes innate, immovable, and, at birth, and that becomes like the thing.
yeah.
Because, Judith Butler seems to think that language is our only reality, right? Or something along those lines, really simplified.
Yeah, language produces reality, so to speak.
Yeah. And President Sunday in that debate is talking about Simone de Beauvoir and saying all these things. And I'm just like, if you follow these like French philosopher conversations, not only are they trying to get rid of sex, but they're trying to get rid of like any social contracts we have because they've hyper intellectualized and deconstructed everything. I mean, even if you read Andrea Dworkin, the end of Andrea Dworkin's Woman Hating, she goes on to talk about how like, in an androgynous post-structuralist society where what she's trying to do is talk about how, the sexes are the same to each other and that none of this really matters and whatever, but she does it really messily. And she ends up advocating for bestiality and for the age of consent to be lowered, right? Simone de Beauvoir and Foucault also signed that petition for the age of consent to be 13. We were
just talking about that at the beginning of this stream.
Yes. And I'm like, this President Sunday.
That's the logical conclusion of when you believe all concepts and all categories are socially constructed, therefore there's no essence to them, then what you're saying is the logical conclusion of that philosophy applied is there is no fundamental difference between an adult and a child. And then the implications of that are obvious and disgusting. And we see that with like the kids getting their breasts surgically removed, among other. That's not even the ends. That's not even the end conclusion of this insane stuff. It's exactly what you said. The French philosophers signed a petition to eliminate the age of consent, or at least bring it down to like 10, 12 or some crazy shit like that.
Yeah,
and
I
of course,
13.
Yeah, and Foucault was actually a pedophile. Like he went to
Yeah.
Tunisia and abused boys.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah, I mean, it's really crazy. And I said this in the video, and President Sunday took a big offense to it, where I was like, there is a point in which you have too much college education and you are too up here. Like, you're up here and you're just like, I've read so much philosophy and I've done so much, and you've just deconstructed your society to a point of like no return. And who it usually is like, it usually is white people. It usually is affluent white people.
Here we go.
Who have these conversations. No, I'm serious. I'm serious. No, I'm
go
serious.
Ahead.
It usually
first,
is.
Can I start with a land acknowledgement first to allow you space to speak about this?
You're so annoying.
I am in Dallas, and this is the land that belonged to the Choctaw people.
You know what? Laugh all you want.
Tribe.
Laugh all.
Now you may.
Want.
Now you may bring up my white privilege. Now that I've
laugh all you. No, I'm not even talking about you. I'm talking about like. I'm not even demonizing it, really. I really think it's a neutral statement to say that, it's oftentimes these overeducated white people who try.
I know. I know. I'm joking. I say that too. Like, I would gladly deport 10,000 white college Marxist kids and replace them with like 10,000
truly.
Cubans,
Yeah, no, like actually, like, because President Sunday talking all this like shit and saying that, President Sunday, who has a history of being like, sort of misogynistic and going after women in like a very like strange way, ends up, I'm talking to him and I'm sort of pleading with him in this debate. And I sort of am pleading during my gender video essay to be like, recognize women as people, like recognize that women are the collateral in this gender debate.
Yeah. Well, first off, two things. President Sunday and I have agreed to talk at some point. It keeps getting pushed back, so I will not. First off, I will not go after President Sunday at all in this. And to be honest, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't really like him a lot at all. When I was like, this guy's freaking weird.
The worst.
But honestly,
he's like a human fedora.
Hold on. He has some strange level of charisma and charm that is impossible to articulate, but just the way that he just sits back.
He's severely autistic and alcohol. He's an alcoholic.
So listen. I you talk to him, so you have a right to, comment on his behavior and all that. I have not talked to him yet, so I'm in no position to criticize him yet. If anything, I'm sucking up to him right now so we can discuss it, me and him.
Cringe.
Some of his jokes when he sits back and he'll just like mutter under his breath these lines. They're
Sure.
funny some of the time, and you gotta give credit where credit's due. But
Sure.
the reality is, I think his belief system is utterly absurd and
Well, his
beyond
belief
laughable.
system has there's no principle in his belief system. He just wants to be the smartest person in the room.
Well, to your point about, actually, this will be the third time in this stream I've said this. Not since you've been on, but like just tying it all together. The smarter you are, the easier it is to rationalize stupid ideas. Right? That's a disadvantage of being smart. And like you just said, like there's a certain point we get too educated. Well, technically, all categories are social. This is like, what did you see the Vosh Aqua moment or in the debate?
I've never seen any Vosh video in my life,
Really?
genuinely.
That's
Ever.
interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then you won't get the reference. But as soon as your belief system is causing you to say like, well, technically water doesn't exist because Spanish people call it aqua. Even it's agua, but he said aqua. Spanish people call it agua. So therefore, what we conceptualize as water is proven to be different. It's like, oh my god, dude. But the whole idea that sex is not a biological reality. It's a social construct because there's intersex, therefore there's exceptions.
Yeah.
This is just a different version of the same philosophical argument about like Platonic forms and whether or not there's an essence to anything. Sure. Right? Like what's a chair? Right? I
hate.
I know that's the classic example.
Oh, dude.
But that's the philosophical argument that's going on. It's like, is cereal a soup? It's like, well, no, of course not. Cereal. It's like, well, what is a soup? It's like, well, it's a liquid. Well, there's a liquid in it. It's like, well, but cereal's cold. It's like, well, if you put soup in the fridge, does it stop being soup? It's like you can play these little games of just like, well, what falls into what categories, and that's what happens with this whole thing of like.
And I think that's normal and natural to do on your own time, right? I mean,
well, intellectual game.
To explicate your it's essentially it is an intellectual game, and you're supposed to play those games to keep yourself sharp and to keep yourself open-minded. But then, and this is why I bring up why legislative language is so important. How to dumb down a definition to make it legislatable is so important. Like especially, I mean, we need laws, right? Like we need laws. So while you're up here vibrating, telling yourself how smart you are, you still got to think about like what is the best for society. Like what is
laws are a social construct. Therefore they're irrelevant.
Which is why I'm really pro-marriage, which a lot of people hate about me because I'm a rad femme. But I'm super pro-marriage because I'm like, we do the best when we're fucking married. When we get married, when our kids have married parents. Yes.
We can talk about Glink when he comes because he did a video on love recently.
Oh, good.
And I think the last time we were talking about monogamy and all that shit. What was I going to say? So, okay, here's two things. So yes, you're pointing out like we need laws. It's like this is the most poignant way that I heard this idea articulated is like, oh shit, this is why this is important. Laws are based off language, right? Like they're literally just written in words.
Yeah. That's what this is what President Sunday is like.
Exactly. So hold on. So if you change the definition of words, you can legislate without actually having to do any legislation.
Yeah.
So if I change what sex is or what gender is, and I call myself non-binary, even though I am non-binary, like now, what does that mean? Am I entitled to legal protections under the Constitution because now we've agreed that there's a different definition? It's like, that's crazy. That's weird.
Yeah.
And that's a serious issue. Here's another point I wanted to make. So this is why I think the gender ideology movement or belief is just, people say the left eats itself all the time. Here's the most obvious example of this, I think. Here's why I have faith that it's going to die. You know how people get called birthing people, or women get called birthing people and all that?
Yeah.
I'm
aware.
How do you feel about that? Out of curiosity.
You know what? I think it's interesting because I think that there should be a push for gender neutral language in general. I think that, you know, the way that we use language is pretty sexist. So if you want to call someone a birthing person, that's honestly fine with me. The problem in you know, what's behind the anger for calling people birthing persons is that women have already been so cast out medically. Like
Right.
so, you know, done away with, so ignored, so, you know, oppressed when it comes to like shit like that, that the birthing person like hits you right
Yeah.
in the hole that's already created by sexist medicine. But otherwise, you know, if we didn't have that problem, I'm fucking all for gender language.
I mean,
Or
look,
gender neutral language.
I am like, I'm absolutely in favor of like, hey, and I think someone who is pretty conservative, I would say, I forgot who it was, was saying like when they read a book to their child, and it says, or like their daughter, so this conservative man will be reading a book to his daughter at night, and like they'll be reading a story, and it says, you know, the mailman or the fireman went, you know, did this or that. He'll change the word, say the firewoman or the fire, you know, the mail woman or whatever. And it's like, okay, that exactly. It's like that's a perfectly reasonable, non-forced change. That's just a good way to do gender neutral language. I've said people talk about their partner, like my partner and I, when they're referring to their spouse.
Yeah.
I think that's a healthy, natural evolution in language.
Yeah.
That's like fine.
Yeah.
The birthing person thing is like, that's what your point about like women aren't speaking up on behalf of themselves, so like they get called birthing people. It's like, is that how you want to be reduced to? You want to be reduced to your sexual organs, your ability to reproduce? It's like that's I can see why women would be upset with that.
Yeah, I can see it.
So here's the interesting thing, because you know how men are never called penis havers or whatever, right?
Penis people.
Penis. Yes, penis people. Sacked up individuals.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a theory on that. Do you have any thoughts on why that is?
Well, I say this in our in my essay is that women have no legitimate claim to like autonomy or freedom or dignity because they're seen as man's inferior other. Men have attributed into themselves what it is to be the prototype of human. And I think that's why this gender stuff has got so much of a foothold, is because anything that is seen as other to like the male strongman archetype is completely othered. So now if you have a failed man, he can very easily, you know, step into the position of like woman.
Sure.
Because you don't need to be a female to be a woman. You just need to be submissive. You need to be able to get fucked. You need to make less money, be dependent on men. You know, feminine characteristics. Like it's just seen as like useless comparatively.
Yeah. That's fair. So I think this is a major part of, so like women get called birthing person, but men never get called person with penis. It's like, well,
yeah,
the ideology that causes people to use terms like birthing person and all that is also one that centers around like patriarchy being a fundamental problem, right? And like the source of a lot of evil. It's like, okay, the reason that you have to have men be defined as men is because your entire the entire worldview, when patriarchy is the issue, requires the existence of an oppressor. And if you say person with penis rather than a man, then you eliminate the ability of the oppressed to identify their oppressor. So the backwards conclusion of that is, well, women are birthing people and people with uteruses and all that different stuff, but men will always be men because they need to be identified as those in power who have patriarchy. Because if we just say people with penises, well, then we're letting men as such get away with it's a way to hide their patriarchal power. And it's like, that's where you have the theory.
And also people think that once you're trans, like a man no longer has patriarchal power once he decides to be a woman.
Yeah, sure. Exactly. Yes. There's all that goofy crossover and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so the theory, you have the academic theory that's driving people to say these things, but then it causes such conflict with real life, even people who would be sympathetic to some of those ideas in the theory of like, women who don't want to be called birthing people are like, hey, fuck this. That's misogynistic. But it's like, no, you don't understand, because the philosophy that's pushing for those terminology to be used won't allow the same gender neutral language to be applied towards men because they're the oppressor that need to be identified. And most people don't think like that, because most people, like you said, are not up here in this intellectual world where they're just, living out ideology or whatnot. So I think that's one of the reasons that this ideology is just self-destructive, is like everyday people who hear birthing person, like Anna Kasparian, not that she's an everyday person, but just
Yeah,
representative of
yeah,
that,
yeah, yeah.
is like, this is ridiculous. And I think it's obvious, it's rightfully so to feel that way. And, they're going to be at odds with the activists and all that. So it's just inherent. It will just, I don't know, fizzle out on its own. And I think that's hilarious.
Yeah, I think I was just having this conversation with my fiance last night, is like, this gender critical stuff is gonna age really well. And people don't think it's gonna age well. And I'm like, we're gonna look back at the way that we mutilated 16-year-old girls'
Oh, yeah.
bodies, and we're gonna think of it like we think of lobotomies. Like, we're literally just we're gonna be like, can't believe we use so many children and adults as collateral to fill this like political agenda, truthfully. And I
or
forget.
pharmaceutical, medical, industrial complex.
Because you're a patient for
agenda.
life. Yeah, this is like one of the only. I mean, this is one of the most successful lifelong conditions for like a doctor. Like, you make them. This is very lucrative.
Yeah. Did you see the video of the Vanderbilt professor saying like, phalloplasties? There are entire hospitals that are sustain themselves just through their phalloplasty department alone. These are very profitable, and they make the hospital a lot of money. And people are on hormone treatment for life. It's like, that is literally Slavoj Žižek, who's like the most left-wing person around, or arguably one of, said like puberty blockers and all this shit is a case of woke capitalism. It's like, yeah, exactly. So is Slavoj Žižek a right-wing conservative now for believing that? It's like, it's so goofy.
Yeah, that's what I find really interesting, because I've been talking about gender a bit on TikTok, which like TikTok audience is like just the worst people alive. They're all like 19, and they're like, I just figured out who Karl Marx is.
19. That's a bit on the older side. I think it's a lot.
Yeah, maybe. My audience, the youngest, is probably like 18, 19.
Maybe.
But yeah, they'll be like, you're siding with right-wing Nazis, and I'm literally just being like, hey guys, a gendered brain isn't fucking real. Like, and they're like, you're siding with the Nazis, and I'm just like, this is crazy.
This is okay, but this is one thing I wanted to ask. So, gendered brain is not a sexed brain is real. You agree with that? Right, like there are minor differences between male and female brains.
Right? There are the same amount of differences between male and female brains that there are across male brains and across female brains. Like the deviation is very, very similar to each other. Like, there's no distinct female and male brain. No.
Okay. I believe, if I am correctly citing this, I brought this Robert Sapolsky last time. This is what I talked about with the monogamy societies or whatever. I pulled up that clip of his. I believe, if I recall, there are certain parts of the brain that are like slightly smaller in males versus females.
So
something like that on average.
Yeah. So we talk about dark matter. So it's about dark matter and
you mean gray matter?
And yeah, gray matter.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Dark matter is like quantum physics and
I don't know. I'm thinking of a Frank Ocean song. But in those spaces, so basically what we know about the brain scans that we have basically is that they're also from adults. So we don't have any baby brain scans. So we understand that socialization affects a brain.
That's true.
Immeasurably.
Yes.
So the social caste and the your job affects it, whether or not you develop feminine, male or woman, whether or not you develop feminine interests would change your brain. Trauma changes the brain. So, we have all these brain scans, but they're not fresh blank slates. So
yes, that's true. Yes. There's a good line that I heard of, like, if you give two genetically identical populations and you endow one with literacy and the other without, you'll see measurable differences in the brain. So like neuroplasticity and socialization does absolutely affect the structure of the brain. But I think, and this will be something we can talk about in terms of do you think that male and female, there are average personality differences across males and females in terms of like interest and whatnot?
So we know that the biggest difference between males and females is aggression. We know that testosterone affects males in any mammal more deliberately than it does women. Of course, women have testosterone in their bodies, but the biggest difference between men and women are behavioral differences based on hormones, and also I think also, if you are the bigger, stronger sex, that is going to influence your ego, your your behavior in ways
Sure,
that
what jobs you're likely to take. Yeah, like manual labor
totally.
is overwhelmingly going to be done by men
Yes,
because
yeah.
they're stronger. So then the social effects of that is like, okay, what are the cultural effects of living in a society where the overwhelming majority of the manual labor is done by one sex?
Yeah.
Like in theory, you could have females do that. It would be, more difficult on average. For some females, it wouldn't, and that's why there's some females who are in manual labor.
Yeah.
Like to me, it's just like sex is the biological reality, and then gender is on top of that, and it's correlated, but not 100% causal all the time. With like aggression, for sure.
Yeah.
That's why everyone in prison is men, basically.
Yeah.
It's like that to say, well, that's a cultural, cultural construct. It's like, no, because it's true cross-culturally too.
Yeah, I think that feminism did something really wrong in like the third wave, where because they couldn't find equity for women, they started to lie to each other. Like feminists in the third wave started to lie to each other and be like, "We are the same as men, the same."
Yeah.
And I think we fucked up so bad with that. Like it's just nonsensical. There are clear differences between men and women. Even if it's just physical, even if it's just that 90% of one can kill 90% of the other with their bare hands, right? Like there are clear differences, and we should be pushing for equity instead of equality. But I don't know.
Equality instead of equity?
No, equity instead of equality. I think equal dominion over the world, right? But equity meaning like when we talk about like a draft, like why would you draft women, like the smaller or weaker sex? Like you could potentially, but it doesn't make a lot of sense. Or equity being like men don't need their safe spaces away from women because women are not a threat to men. So but women do need their safe spaces.
A biological male that identifies a different gender going into the female locker room is a much different problem and much more of a problem than a biological female identifying as a man going into
exactly.
The
so
male
equity, yeah. So equity. It's just like to each, their own needs when it comes to the sex classes.
Okay, if that's what I see, okay, I understand. Equity, the whole like equality of outcome versus equity, like equality of opportunity, like. So that's why I was the way you described it.
Equal dominion over the earth. Equal dominion over the earth.
Sure. Or my thing is like every person, male or female, should have whatever opportunities that the other sex has available to them.
Yes.
And but not necessarily equality of outcome where it's like if a woman wants to go into manual labor, if she can do it, if she works out and whatnot, and is big enough to handle it, totally fine. And then if a man wants to go into modeling or whatever, okay, fine, totally fine. But like, just because there are disparities in both of those industries doesn't mean that that's an example of like
I think
sexism
you using that example is hilarious, because even in that example, the woman's role is object. Even in that example, the woman's role is something to be looked at, which I just think is really, you go to manual labor, to not even motherhood. You don't even go to motherhood.
Because a man can't be a mom. Well, the reason, hold on.
A man can be a caretaker, but you go straight to modeling, which I think is so interesting.
Because the pay gap for men and women in modeling is overwhelmingly in favor of women. That's why I want that example.
It's not that overwhelming. Like it is truly not that overwhelming.
Okay, we'd have to compare that's why I went with that example. I'm not saying that's an inherent thing. I'm just, people say like, oh well, when men and women are like, men get paid more in sports. It's like, because it's conducive to physical strength. Women get paid more in modeling. It's like, because that's conducive to the fact that like males and females are different in terms of, okay. All right, Judith Butler. I'm going to bring Glink on here in a little bit.
Perfect. But we're talking about biological differences. Oh, and I also think I was wondering, are you pro patriarchy? Pro anti?
Am I pro patriarchy?
Yeah.
My pro tyranny, you mean? I'm
not
the patriarchy.
Not tyranny.
The patriarchy discriminates against non-binary people such as myself.
You're so annoying.
So holy shit. Obviously I can't be. What do you mean pro patriarchy? Do I think that there are do I think, for example, that the average differences between males and females will manifest themselves in the representation of people in power? Yeah, I think so. I think there are the fact that there are far more men who are CEOs, I do think is in part a function of the inherent personality traits that are different between men and women. Just like the same reason that for the same reason that like most of the people in prison are men because of the differences between males and females. That's like the extreme in society, people who are extreme on the aggression side. Well, aggression is also extremely helpful in, like elite corporate bullshit where there's all kinds of backstabbing.
I would say collaboration, I'd say that women are known for their collaborative skills, and collaborative skills are probably way more fruitful in, a setting like that. But, go ahead.
Well, actually, I think
this is what I was going to say.
Okay, go ahead. No, go spew your misinformation. No, go ahead.
What I was going to say is that I think that patriarchy is supernatural. I think that patriarchy is the most naturalistic state of a society with the two sexes like we have. It just makes the most sense.
What do you mean by patriarchy, I guess? Because like when I hear patriarchy, I hear like evil, bad structure where women are oppressed.
Well, so that's what it can become is the problem. So in its nature, men excluding women from their higher social castes or government or whatever. It makes sense that they would do that, right? You talk about like bigger, stronger animals with egos who are like very sexually and generally aggressive. It like makes sense that like that is where we would be. I just think that we should, as a society, also like really be aware of that and fight against it, like with everything we have.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, for example, I worked at a company and I knew this woman who was higher up, and she told me the kind of shit that goes on in like the boardrooms where it's mostly men, or like not the boardrooms, but like the higher level meetings of like the directors and senior directors, and the kind of jokes they make, and it's like, oh, this really is an old boys club. Like that's what that is, right? So that's a real thing. I guess what like patriarchy is like, I don't know if as long as any individual woman has more or less the same opportunities as every individual man, barring like fundamental differences, like one's disabled or something like that, right? Assuming roughly equal like socioeconomic status and able-bodiedness and all that stuff. As long as men and women have roughly the same opportunities as individuals, that's what I'm more concerned about. But if you accept there are differences between males and females, that means those outcomes will never be the same. There will always be more men in manual labor.
Yeah.
There will always be more females in social work. Yeah. Because like we know that interest is one of the, I learned this in gender studies, by the way, and they're like the least likely to accept fundamental differences between males and females. But the professor said, and before she said this, she said, oh my God, she said, she's like, one thing that's important to know is like facts matter, guys, like facts matter. And she was like, almost like saying it like, oh, like, guys, like here in gender studies, we do have to like facts matter. And I'm like, oh, because she doesn't want to sound like Ben Shapiro, where she's like, facts don't care about your feelings. So she said, remember, facts matter. And it is the case that on average, the biggest differences between males and females like have to do with interest and aggression is the other one. And women on average are more interested in people than things. And that's replicated in like monkeys and all that shit.
Well, that also makes sense, right? Because we're like, you guys are like the apex predator and we're like prey. We have to be like constantly vigilant. We have to be constantly vigilant of our surroundings.
Well, not to quote Jordan Peterson, who I know you're a huge fan of. I am no longer a fan of Jordan Peterson, by the way, officially. But since you are, I will.
Oh yeah, I am.
Point this out. I think he says something like, female nervous systems are adapted to the mother-infant relationship more so than just the mother, because like, why? Is there any reason why it makes sense from like an evolutionary perspective that women would be more sensitive to negative emotion? It's like, well, yes, because they need to be more threat sensitive because they're smaller physically and there's all kinds of men out there trying to kill them. Yeah. And then they have an infant to take care of. So not only have to protect themselves, they have to protect their infant as well. So it makes sense that over billions of years of evolution, you get these somewhat different on average personality traits.
Yeah.
But even then, to quote Jordan Peterson again, your favorite person.
Yeah.
Men and women on average are more the same than they are different. That's the key thing of like aggression. Like, I think it's like if you pick a random man and a random woman out of a given population, the man is likely to be more aggressive on a personality scale.
Yes.
Like 60% of the time, which 60-40 is not massive. But when you get to the extremes, like who are the most aggressive people out of a given set of like 100 people. It's all men, which is why they're all in prison.
Yeah.
Right. So those small differences at the means.
That's
make big
I think
differences at
it's
the extremes.
yeah, I think that that's pretty funny when people bring up like when I talk about segregation, when I talk about sex segregation, people are like, "Well, this is the same ideas that we had about black people in the 50s and 60s." And I'm just like, did you notice that like also, you know, or when people try to do the race realism thing when I do the sex realism thing, they're like, you know, that black people commit more crime. If men commit more crime, then, you know, by your logic, we would separate black people. And I'm like, you know, what's so interesting is that what sex in the black community is creating that crime? Like,
Yeah,
it's
being a
not
male,
women. It's not women.
being a male is the biggest predictor of whether or not you've committed crime, more so than race.
Yes, by a billion. So it is so yeah, that is so interesting.
Well, and it's also like,
and what being you know, poverty riddled and disenfranchised does to the male population also, which is crazy.
Yeah, and biggest predictor. It's also like, you know, some people argue that there are inherent biological differences between the races, and obviously, okay, like skin color is biological. It's like, yes, duh.
Yeah.
But to say that there are fundamental differences that are not affected by socialization is like, that's nonsense.
Yeah.
But it is absolutely the case that there are fundamental differences between the sexes. So
Absolutely.
The comparison from like sex to race is such a ridiculous.
It makes more sense to be transracial than it does to be
transsexual.
transsexual.
Isn't that
like genuinely?
Again, that's another example of like your own, like not you, but the ideology of the people pushing for stuff is like, well, if race is the most important dimension by which people are oppressed, you cannot allow that construct to dissolve, because then you have no marker for who's the oppressor and who's the oppressed.
Yeah,
and then your whole system falls apart.
Yeah, people don't talk about also this whole like, you know, scorning white women thing is like pervasive now. They, you know, men and women have decided, men and women have decided that if you put white before woman, you're like good to fucking go. Misogyny is like A-okay now. Which is it's just so crazy.
I saw Matt Walsh said Karen is a slur. And you know what?
It's a pejorative. I don't know if it's a slur.
Slur is a strong word, I guess.
Yeah.
Especially when you consider what the category of slurs there are. But certainly, like, calling someone a Karen, it's like, yeah, I get it's funny. But I understand, like, you know,
it's completely misogynistic.
If I made a joke, like calling someone a Karen, and someone was like, hey, you know, that's kind of like fucking lame that you do that, I'd be like, yeah, I get that. That's kind of, I knew this girl from high school named Karen, and she had like, I think, a very rough life.
Oh.
And the thought of like just one more thing that stacks up on top of her life is like she happened to be named the thing, which is like a slur. Just like, it's such a joke.
Add it into, you know, women's backpack of stones, right? It is just like another
Do you think
thing now. Because now we have to worry about like, if you're in public and you're a white woman, you have to worry about like anyone filming you trying to fucking mess with you.
Yeah, the bike thing.
Fucking viral. Yeah, like
the bike thing.
I mean that's just this week's example of that. Like, you know, people are harassing middle-aged women, and like waiting for them to snap. Like,
well, I think that's a function of like we like literally nowadays we're taught to like anything that you could film and go on viral, you need to catch it or whatever. So any type of, so people are always interested in filming and finding some people to, you know, ooh, how do I go viral on Twitter? But then like what is the current cultural milieu on Twitter that decides what crops up at the top? Oh, here's a white woman stealing a bike from a black kid. Well, that rebuts the narrative that all the patriarchal conservatives are using. So let's make that go viral. It's like, oh, it turns out Streisand effect. It's the opposite. I was going to say something, but I completely forgot. Let me shoot Glink the link.
I was going to say something too, but I forgot. I think we're having simultaneous strokes.
Reality is a social construct. Maybe schizophrenia. I think what was I going to say? Do you think this is a reductive question? I know this, and I'm asking it not for like a straight answer, but more to facilitate the discussion of like, do you think on average females in, let's say, the United States, middle class and above, have it harder than males?
Oh, I remember what I was going to say. I remember you know, a lot of people don't think about or talk about the fact that black men who were seen as,
just ignore my question.
Who were seen, well, no, I'm going to answer it. I'm going to answer it. But people don't, you know, black men who were seen as like unhuman, right? Like disenchanted humans or whatever, got the right to vote before any woman did.
Yeah, Frederick
like
Douglass and
chattel
what's her name?
slavery, like, Black people who we thought that we could own. I mean, we thought that we still think that we can own women, like, as a society. That's still like, I mean, modern day slavery
I
is
don't know who you mean
happening.
by
Say
we. Maybe
whatever.
Rollo Tomasi, but
I mean we. I mean like peoples around the world, like even in places like India, indentured servitude, or like
sure, patriarchy absolutely exists in a hardcore form in like places where
yeah,
female genital mutilation is practiced, for example.
yeah. I think that the biggest ask your question one more time.
Do you think broadly speaking, for the average like middle class American, in America, let's say, do you think that the average male or average female has it harder, or do you think it's roughly the same in terms of like each one faces unique challenges and it's super dependent on the person? I frame that very biased.
I think I have a personal tie with female subjugation under patriarchy, obviously. So I'm inclined to say that women have a more heinous fate. But I also see that, especially in like, if a man can't perform, if a man is disabled, he is kind of deemed worthless. And that's objectification. It's in its own right. It's not sexual subjugation, which women are constantly faced to. Like, the average woman in, middle class always has in the back of her mind, I can do OnlyFans. Like, if this shit doesn't work out, I can do OnlyFans. Unfortunately, that does create capital, but also now again, it's just like sexual subjugation. So then you're just like,
yeah,
okay.
or the commodification of intimacy and all that.
Yeah, totally. So that, I think, is pretty heinous. But also, I completely empathize with, like, if you're not a man who is the smartest in the room, or the strongest, or the most handsome, you're also sort of
under the radar.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say, but at least you guys have the option of being human. Whereas I feel like women have never had that. Women have no legitimate claim to freedom or dignity. They never have.
Okay, I'm gonna have to bring in our boy Greg here. Just get his comments.
Yo, what's
Gregory.
going on, guys?
How are you, man?
Nice to see you, Paul.
Nice to see you. Nice to be reunited.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Months later, all kinds of cosmic.
What's going on,
wondrous stuff has happened.
just hanging out.
Have you pivoted your beliefs again? I mean, it's okay if you have.
Have I pivoted them? I don't know if I've. This is
evolved,
everyone
Greg,
keeps saying that I flip flop, and I never flip flop back and forth. I just sort of like follow one line and I read, and then I sort of like branch out there. I'm not like flip flopping. I just know more now. So yeah, I think I've adapted to my influences more so. I know way more now than I did the last time we talked.
Okay.
Right, like Greg, one of the things that we talked about last time, it was us three. I brought this up with Leah or Laugh. Which would you prefer?
Leah. Let's do Leah.
Brought this up with Leah already, but you saw Leah was on the Whatever podcast.
I did see that clip.
Yeah, right. So like millions upon millions of people have been influenced by the woman sitting right in front of me virtually. So my perspective, my Jordan Peterson infused Maps of Meaning perspective, despite me not being a fan officially of Jordan Peterson anymore, is that everything you do matters. Every single thing you do matters. Every word you say, every action you take matters and has ripples out. And everything that got you up to that point on the Whatever podcast that then shaped your perspective enough for you to have the conversation the way that you did with Brian, that mattered. I like to think that I had a huge hand in that, in getting you to the Whatever podcast. That's fine. No, it's fine.
I have read since the last time we talked, probably $30, like probably $30. I've listened to fucking 300 lectures of trigonometry and Louise Perry. Some Jordan Peterson. His conversation that he had with Louise Perry, gold. I really
Okay.
every time he
I haven't
talks to
seen that
Louise
one.
Perry, it's really incredible because I love her.
She's
I
like the
really, really love her.
anti-sex or like
Yeah.
anti-sexual revolution person.
Yeah, The Case Against Sexual Revolution is her book, and it's my favorite of all of the things that I've read. I connected to it the absolute most. And she's called like conservative just because she acknowledges the differences between the sexes. It's pretty stupid, but yeah. So it had nothing to do with you. You know what it did have to
That
do
you
with
know
though?
of.
It was a chain reaction of my experiences with men on the internet. Like when I joined the internet 2 years ago, I was so naive and I was just like, sexism doesn't really persist. Like people say that sexism is real, but like I've never really felt it. Like, and then I joined the internet and I was like, oh, people hate women.
Yes. Well, that's true for sure.
Hey guys,
Yeah.
I'm gonna try stepping outside. Let me know if the connection gets bad. It should be
Okay.
fine, but
Okay. I think it's good. Greg, I wanted to talk. Leah, I don't know if you know, but Greg recently made a video about love. Right? How would you describe your recent video, Greg?
how would I describe it? I would just say it was just some silly interviews that gave some actually surprising insight into the state of modern dating and how I think both men and women are sort of disappointed with the lack of organic ways to meet people. Everything feels like it's confined to the, very performative and fake algorithms of dating apps and such.
Yeah.
And I think everyone I talked to agreed that we need more ways to meet people that is not so forced and pressured. But we have a lack of options. We have bars. Nobody wants to, like, bars suck because there's such a, people are looking either to just hang out with their friends or they're just trying to hook up or something like that. It's a very non-conducive, it's a very like highly competitive environment and or highly like fractured environment, so it's not a good place to meet people.
Atomized, well, this is so just to be the reason I brought you both here is because I need help finding a girlfriend, and I have tried. Glink, Greg, your video in particular was like, yes, exactly. It is.
That's kind of what every online guy needs, right?
I know. It's the unfortunate nature of reality that I think, it is a weird kind of atomized spot where, there's Tinder and okay, I've used that and it's all been virtually just not good experience. There's at no point was there ever like a match that I got and like went on a date where I was like, oh, this is someone I could see myself with. It was like, this is, I will hook up with this person and then try to get them out of my apartment as quick as possible, which makes me feel disgusting. I know. So I know. And the reason is talking about patriarchy. It's like, I felt like an expectation of like, well, you have to,
wait,
you're a man.
Hold on.
Paul,
do you have, I don't mean to get too personal, but do you have casual sex?
No, to put it like the few times I have were not good. So,
okay. Yeah,
and part of, there's a variety of things we could go on that we may or may not need to get into detail on, but like part of what I learned in therapy was exactly that of like people may have different opinions on this, but like I'm pretty good at conversation, which is why I'm an epic YouTuber, right? So it's not difficult to like be interested in what someone has to say, like as a person, and find out what their interests are. And then like anytime I'd be talking to a girl that I'm like, oh, I don't really feel any attraction to, like I could make it seem like it by just being interested in the conversation, because the bar is so fucking low nowadays, right? And then I feel like this fake ass person of like, well, I'm not really interested, but like this is what I have to do, so I have to like, oh, that's cool, you're a costume designer at your at your university. Oh, well, how does that win? It's just like so yeah.
I went on a date once where a man like literally 10 minutes into it was like, your personality is very unsettling and I don't want to be here anymore. And I was like, I mean, to some degree, I was like, thanks for not wasting my fucking time. I'm like, I went home, I got in my car and I sobbed, but I was still
Was the feeling mutual? Was the feeling mutual?
Yes, but like, like Paul said, like I'm way more suited to pretend that I like someone or to pretend that I'm comfortable. So I could have done the whole date and been like, I just wouldn't have called him.
Yeah.
Mm.
I know a
But
Well,
guy
that's
who, I'll just
go
quickly
on.
say, I know a guy who he set up a Tinder date, walked into the bar where she was, and she did not match her pictures.
Oh, no.
So my buddy went up
many
to
such
her.
cases.
He put $100 bill on the table and said, "Ma'am, enjoy your night. I'm gonna get out of here," or something like that,
No.
and just left. And I was like, "That's cold," but like,
I kind of respect it.
like he like left the money on the table and like enjoy
Wow.
your night, like and arguably
He
you could
took
say that
the
was
L.
dishonest of her. Yeah.
Typical
So
moid, materialistic,
So,
disgusting.
go
Leah,
ahead.
right?
Yeah.
That's actually something I noticed. I forgot to mention it before, but I did see you tweet out a few months ago something like really vehemently against casual sex, which is very surprising because I feel like I saw months before that you tweeting out some very, I guess, like body
Pro
positive,
casual
sex
sex.
positive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, so what happened there?
Yeah. What gives? Who's paying you?
Well,
Yeah, is it
part of it.
Soros or Crowder?
Yeah, it's
Or
Soros.
the Koch brothers.
Yeah, it's Soros. No, so there's a couple of things that contributed to this. One is that I think the last time we talked, my relationship was open, and we were like experiencing our open relationship, and some of it was very beautiful, some of it was not so beautiful, and I realized like part of why we opened the relationship was because I was so addicted to and obsessed with male validation that like if my partner was working and I wasn't busy with my own things, I like had to get it somewhere else, which is a really unhealthy way or really unhealthy reason to open a relationship or to have a connection because you need to like fill something. And then also, I don't want to bring up like the drama with like me and Destiny, but when I entered into this relationship with Destiny, I had thought that trading photos of myself was perfectly suitable in pursuit of clout and fame and what it would do for my career, and then it completely bit me in the ass afterwards because he was able to do whatever he wanted with my public perception regardless of whether or not I sent him photos of myself or had a shared my body with him. And in that moment, after dealing with the fallout from that in November, after coming forward about how uncomfortable it made me ultimately, I realized that and Louise Perry talks about this, is that sex is actually like very sacred to humans, and pretending like it's not is quite frankly like ridiculous. And they sold this sexual revolution to women and to men for women to fuck like men, and they're saying that like the prototype of sexual behavior is male sexual behavior, and it's not, right? Like I know that when I have sex with someone I do bond with them, and it is something deeper for me, and perhaps men don't always feel that. Certainly some men do, but men are widely known as they don't create bonds when they have sex, and they're able to have sex without strings attached, and we've sold that to men and women to say that that is natural and normal. And I think it's the degradation of society, and I think that also it puts women in a very dangerous position, and I didn't realize how dangerous it was until that happened.
Yeah.
So
I
having sex with Destiny turned
I
you
never
off
had
to
sex
casual
with
sex.
Destiny.
Okay, so being in a relationship with Destiny turned you off to the idea.
I wasn't in a relationship with him
well,
either.
to divert from
But
that
no,
explains it. That
but
explains
divert
using
from that.
but this no, hold on, because I would like to explain this. I entered into the relationship thinking, okay, he's asking for photos of me, and I'm doing sex work, and I fucking hate sex work, and I want to do something different. If this is the last sex work I do, it's worth it because I will have opened a door into whatever. But I didn't realize what I was giving him when I entered that relationship, because also I didn't realize that
Did he
I
have
said,
blue hair at the time?
no.
Hmm.
But he
Yes,
had
well-
he had the ability to change the public perception of me in a fucking second, and I didn't
He
realize.
made a deal with the devil.
I did, but I knew
Right.
going into it that that's what I was like, you know what? I'll take like part of it is embarrassing because I have to deal with the fact that I took the L, right? Like I have to deal with the fact that I put myself in that position.
Right. Well, that is how
purposely.
we learn. But
Yeah.
this is to your point about like sexual revolution, all that shit. Well, last time we talked, and Greg, I don't know if you've pivoted your views on monogamy or whatnot, or are you still with the Terrence McKenna, everyone should be in a polyamorous orgy? But like, I do, this is what I brought last time. Was like there are absolutely individuals who are more
Yes.
on the distribution of openness, where like they can benefit from open relationships and bringing in a third person or whatever, blah blah blah.
Mostly
And
men.
probably, yeah,
Have your little gay orgies.
sure.
Leave
And
women out of it.
right. Well, there are women who fall into that personality distribution as well.
Yeah.
But
There
my
are women
point
leading
is-
that.
Well, my point is there's enough of those people where it's not like you can't just suppress that and say that like the right wing Christians like all sex outside of marriage is disgusting and blah, all that stuff. It's like that is too far. Just like saying, well, all sex is it's just for fun. It's just a material thing. And I think there's a lot of like I think Louise Perry may have brought this point up of like, okay, if you believe that sex is not sacred, or you think it's just like a material exchange, would you be okay with a landlord exchanging sex
with a young woman who can't pay her rent?
with a tenant? Yeah. Well, if it's just an activity and they're both consensual and they're putting a number on it, would you be okay with that? It's like, that does seem to be at odds or something intuitively. And I do think there is something. Yeah. And to be honest, like that's where I was like, for the longest time, it was like, and I still make this, I tell people when I bring this up, I preface it this way, and it's like a joke of like, hey, I know this is pathetic, but like, I would really prefer to have sex with someone that I'm like emotionally connected to, and it's like, just like the culture we're in, and like I was in a fraternity and stuff like that. And so there's my experiences are just like everyone's experience is unique, but there is a prevailing sentiment of like, yeah, this is what, defines masculinity.
That's dangerous.
And all that stuff.
That's not only dangerous for like, STD rates or that, but especially if you're a woman in this sexual zeitgeist, and you have to deal with things as pervasive as rape, like telling women to just like just go out there and have sex with whoever you want, and even though you're a sexual selector, just put it out on the table. You're give a woman birth control. She no longer gets pregnant anymore, so she doesn't have to think about her sexual selection. Like, you're advocating for women to go out there and potentially get like very, very, very hurt, like emotionally and physically.
Yeah. Well, I want to bring it back to the original question. How do I get a girlfriend nowadays?
Yeah.
Greg, what have you concluded? Do I need to get a dog?
I think getting a dog is a good move.
I love that. It was so funny that like 6 minutes, because it's like a 10-minute video, and then you're doing the interviews, and then it's like the dog comes up, and then you zoom out, and they all have dogs. I'm like, oh my, fucking brilliant. Yes.
I mean, I think dogs are like a bridge between. That's how they use them here, at least. It depends on the place you live. Some places nobody has dogs, but like here, everybody has them, and it's like, it's almost like an excuse to talk with someone, because like you see their dog, they see yours. It's a little connection. I think that's a good use of animal partnership, or whatever you want to call it, is like, if we don't use dogs for hunting or for sport, we could at least use them for socializing. I think that's cool. Not just use them, but you know what I mean? Like it's they're mutually beneficial thing. It's hard, man, because it's like, outside of work and school, it's like I realized, well, what you just said, Leah, about women being selectors. If you think about that, it's like, well, in order to be within the range of men that is even considered for selection, you have to be in some sort of community structure, whether that's like, okay, maybe a girl is a barista at work, right? And she has all her coworkers, maybe one or two of them is a guy. They might be in her selection. But like, if you're just a customer passing by one time, you're not in that selection because you're just a random guy. Right? Is that I mean, I feel like we need
I agree with you, but I don't know, I don't understand this like new age sort of like shitting on online dating. I think online dating is a great tool. You just got to learn how to do it.
I give up. I'm done with it. It's over.
I think that's silly. I think that there are some things that you got to do. I met the love of my fucking life, the most perfect man I've ever met on Hinge. So I don't know. Hinge is really algorithmically like great. It like matches you with people that you know, that you think have things in common with, that you could be attracted to. I think it even takes into account like what the person looks like. Like the algorithm sort of, I don't know. They use like crazy shit. I don't know.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Yes.
after a couple weeks, I was getting people suggested to me, and there was just like banger after banger. I was like, oh my god, this is crazy.
Well, as
but
a
you
attractive
have to,
woman,
you
lad,
have
you may
li-
have the advantage in that
listen,
landscape.
of course, but so you have to play the game.
I agree.
So
I agree. I
when
think
so you can't you have to
Or
put
you can
certain
make
photos.
your own game.
No.
that's true too.
Yeah, you
can make
can
your
do
own
that.
game.
Good luck. Good
Well,
luck.
start
That's
my
what
own
men
dating
do.
Single for
That's what
5 more
men
years.
do.
Yes.
I thought you said that you wanted a fucking girlfriend, not that you wanted to play by your own rules. Okay,
Right.
you have to let go of one dream.
I think I think like you like a lot of people just don't take and I think men in particular don't take like I'm not going to get any good pictures and like that. Like if you put some effort
Yeah.
into it and set it up and
Totally.
like try and I think that's
Yeah.
fair. I'm not what I fucking hate about dating apps is just the pure monetary bullshit they do of like
Yeah.
here you have 50 matches that are waiting. Pay like $16 to unlock them or whatever. It's like
I've never had
Are
to
you
do
fucking
that.
I will
joking?
say I've
That's
heard
woman privilege.
I have heard good things about Hinge, and I do know some people personally who
Yeah, I
have
know.
girlfriends from it. But
yeah.
I feel like no offense, I feel like the girls on Hinge were not very attractive, at least when I tried it. So maybe it
Interesting.
prioritizes personality, but the attraction is not really there for me. But
Oh
Well,
no,
I
that
do
must
think-
be so hard.
See, my problem is, it's not
Dude, men want
physically.
their cake. Men want 60 cakes and they want to
Listen,
eat all of them.
Listen. The problem that I have is it's not physically possible to condense my absolute dynamite personality down to 5 pictures and 2 prompts and expect that there'll be no bandwidth loss on that.
You know what it is? You know
that's
something
the
else
problem.
I've realized? Something else I realized, and this goes both ways for seeking a woman and also just presenting yourself as a man, is like there's a natural filter of the people who are the most earnest and honest and real in person are going to translate the least well over something that is,
Sure.
like you said, forcing you to present yourself in a few images and prompts. And actually, it's the opposite. It's like the people that look the most promising are probably the most shallow, because if they're so good at presenting themselves in these boiled down little ways, is there that much to them? I feel like usually not.
Maybe, but that goes back to like
You're-
you
but
should play
also,
the
if
game.
you're-
Like
if
put
you're
some
look-
effort into it. If
It
someone
also-
puts effort into their dating
Sure,
profile, I
yeah.
don't think that's a sign of shallowness per
No,
se.
no,
But I
no,
get
no.
what you're saying. Someone who's adept at creating a false persona online will also be able to do
Well,
that.
and on the other end of things is like, do I want to get with a girl who's on a dating app? I honestly feel like most of the girls on dating apps, there's something fucked up about them. And same as true
I don't
of
know.
guys,
Maybe,
but
well,
in a different
I don't
way.
know. I wouldn't.
No, it's
that's
people
too
who
broad
it's,
of a.
it's
That's too
people
broad
who
of a
work at
filter.
home. It's shy people, introverts usually. Like, it's people who wouldn't don't feel comfortable going up to someone at a bar. It's like gentler,
Okay, well,
probably
so
more
that's
introverted people.
okay. That's the other thing I want to talk about. I remember I had this conversation with my Uber driver on the way to the airport. He picked me up in my apartment complex. He's like, "Man, there's so many hot ladies around here. When I was 20, I was bagging like 2 a week or something like that." I'm like, amen, brother. That's glorious. But it was, and he was like, it's all a numbers game. You gotta like, if there's 10 women, you just approach, you say hi, and then like you approach 10 and like you'll get one of them. And I was like, okay, like let's steel man that perspective for a second. Like, you know what? If you're a person just in general, like you should be learning to develop your confidence in your social skills. And it's okay to just say, hey, how you doing? And if someone doesn't want anything to do with you, you just say, what's up, sorry to bother you, blah, 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 whatever. Like, that's fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. There is something, the problem is like, if like, okay, it's a numbers game. If I talk to 10, I get down to 3 numbers and one will, it's like, well, maybe you're just playing a game where it's not like one out of every 10. Let's say you're a man and you're trying to meet women. It's not like 1 out of every 10 women you meet is going to be like, oh, it's just a random, point at which they'll like agree to go on a date or something like that. It's like maybe you're just sifting through until you get to the kind of person who would like say yes to a date to a random person on the street or whatnot. It's like, well, my rationalization is, well, I don't think I would want to be in a relationship with someone who just like, if it can just be like smooth talked or whatever, like off the street or whatnot. But that's also just cope on my end of like, well, I don't do that. And honestly,
that is cope,
like,
because it's doubting yourself. It's not
exactly.
that the person would be attracted to you, not about someone smooth talking. It's about what you're saying and the
Yeah,
vibe you
and
give
you can
off.
be authentic or
Well,
whatnot. I mean,
also,
I've seen cringe shit of like people going up and like, ma'am, you are
Yeah,
absolutely gorgeous and all this stuff. And it's
that
very
is
like
cringe.
superficial, like pickup artist type stuff. And I'm like,
uh,
yeah, exactly. So, but
Dude,
the
I
issue, here's my issue, just to make this point
yeah.
is like if I like at bars or whatnot, yes, I'll talk to women, especially if our friend group like meets them or whatever. That's no problem. But like just like pure cold approach of just like, I think this woman's attractive. I'm gonna go up and talk to her. I just, I
We noticed you from across the bar. We like
yeah,
your
well, but
vibe.
there's
we
kind
like
of an
your
element.
vibe.
Yeah, there's kind
Yeah.
of an element of like, what's like if I'm being truly
That's what
authentic.
Destiny and his girlfriend are saying to people right now.
Yeah. If I'm being truly authentic and I go up to girls like, hey, I thought you were really hot and I just wanted to talk to you. Like, is that fair? I mean,
No,
the
so
problem is
I wouldn't go in. So
Don't
I
go in
think
with that.
yeah, no, you don't go
okay.
in with that. But
Thanks,
you
Jess.
going up. So I have the advantage of being a woman and also hitting on women because I'm bisexual and I've had girlfriends and relationships with women who
Wow.
I've picked up at various social settings.
World travel.
Yes, and one thing that women will always respond well to is being funny. Like being earnest and being funny. So even if you're like,
Wow.
even if
This
you
is
go
news
up
to me.
even if you go up to a woman at a bar and you're like, you are very pretty, and just sort of be like awkward and giggly and do whatever. And I think that I think that she'll probably giggle with you, and you've got her attention. And yeah, just be earnest, go
Yes.
in confident, but go in kind of bashful, right? Like,
Yeah, and aware
don't
that it's
be
kind of goofy. My favorite thing
yeah.
is like if you're at the bar and you like start making eye contact with someone just across the room or whatever, and then it's just like you just keep looking up for like 5 or 10 minutes, and then you walk by. Oh hey, like there are the thing that I told my Uber driver. This gets stuck in my head. Is in my gender studies class, they were talking about like the same professor who remember I said was like kind of hesitant about saying like facts matter and all that.
Yeah.
She brought up a poll about like sexual harassment or something in terms of like if a man approaches you and asks to buy you a drink at the bar, what % of women consider that sexual harassment? And it was like it was like 20 some, it wasn't like massive. It was like 20%. And she literally said, the professor, like to this class of all women, except for me, although I'm not binary, was like, guys, like that's, you don't want, that's not like, there has to be a line. Like that's fine. Like it's sometimes nice if a guy comes up and flirts with you or whatever. But then there's always the element of just like, well, you never want to be seen as a creep. And, it's all this like, weird stuff or whatnot. So I get the hesitance that people have.
I think women are less likely to feel creeped out if you like are a mutual friend in some way. So then I also also encouraging people to get involved in their community or like classes, like pottery classes, or even like
You should just try to be friends with girls. I don't mean you in particular. I mean any man, I think, should try to be friends with girls first, and then don't even worry about trying to get with anyone. It's like I feel like the positions that I've been in where I'm not that I'm like whatever. Just the point is like whenever I'm presented with options, it's because I wasn't going for trying to just fuck someone or get with them. It's like you befriend someone, maybe they introduce you to their friends, they trust you, you build a relationship of trust, which opens more opportunities. And then as a man, you can have a selection pool. That's the most ideal place to be in, is like, instead of always, I mean, it starts with you being the initiator or the pursuer or whatever. But it's like, if you have options as a man, that's always a good position to be in, right? But I think you build that it starts with a connection, even if she's not attractive. Yeah, even if like just a girl that's like whatever, it's just, even if you're not physically attracted to her, if you're both into the same things and she has some friends and you have some friends and you do stuff with her as friends, she's going to introduce you to the people she knows. And even if not, you're going to meet new people by hanging out with her. You know what I mean? So
yeah, even the useless girls who like aren't attractive.
Oh my god.
No, not like that. It's just
do not shame people for having preferences, Leah.
I can listen. If you're trying to find a girlfriend, you can't be that fucking picky. Okay, you're not a sexual selector. The sexual revolution has made it so that men think that they're the sexual selectors, and you're not.
This is my advice.
Take what you can get.
This is my advice. First thing you should do if you're looking for a girlfriend is not come on a live stream and ask two absolutely people who are almost as mentally ill as you are. Whether how to get a girlfriend. That probably won't.
Listen, I've been with my partner for 4 years. We're in a super sexual but successful relationship. Like, there's been no problems. We've never broke up. Like, it's been really great. So I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
What does he think about
I know, I'm
Destiny?
joking.
What does he think about Destiny? Your partner?
I think
Does he watch it?
Of course not. My fiance is a normal person. I think that he probably feels secondhand embarrassment, which I think is fair. Yeah, I think
for Destiny.
Well, no, I think he feels embarrassed because he's like, wow, this guy.
Mm-hmm.
You like me and you chose this guy. But I think he gets it because he understands where I was coming from with the career stuff. So
right.
As much as I love personal drama.
Well, I'm glad you.
Oh my god, shut up!
I'd like to avoid
Paul.
digging too deep onto it.
But no, this
community.
All,
Greg, your point.
Community.
Oh, you're not binary. You're a gender atheist. Woman doesn't exist. I think, it's like we used to.
And not
JReg has
Twitch
a video
communities,
on this.
not Twitter communities,
right?
Not
real life community. Right.
I think this is stupid. That's so
What's the
dumb.
JReg video?
Use the online community. Use online communities.
No, they suck. They're more trouble than they're worth.
No, they're not.
And also, you never wait. Leah's a great example of this. Where think about this. From Destiny's perspective, right? She was in his community, but the problem with these online communities, as exemplified by your intentions, is that you never know what somebody's intentions really are unless you know them in real life. It's like, well, she could be doing this for any number of reasons. She could be interested in me, especially as a content creator, especially as someone with something to lose online. I feel like that's don't mess with that too much.
But it's a very unique situation being famous YouTubers such as ourselves. All of us as celebrities.
It's a curse. It's a curse.
God, my life is difficult. I think Gregory.
Well, then what do you feel about, because I had very, very good pictures on my account. I was like an Instagram model somewhat, and I had this very public OnlyFans when I met my fiance. Was he going into it for the right reasons?
You're a woman.
How could we possibly know? There's no possible way to answer that question.
No, go online. You meet the most people online.
Men are simpler.
Men are
simpler.
I want to tell you,
you don't have to worry about men's intentions as much, believe it or not. That's what I think, because
that's so stupid.
He might be attracted to you, but he might also be willing to build a future with you, even if he doesn't immediately decide that. But a woman, I think, can.
Hold on. What is a woman?
You're so annoying. Annoying.
A woman is the feminine embodiment of the feminine.
Yeah, I think woman is the category by which the patriarchy.
Sorry, guys, I got a call, but I'm back.
You're back.
Yes, that's fair.
I think it's the physical embodiment of the feminine.
Can I tell you the time that I went on a date with a porn star and she kicked me out of her apartment?
That's beautiful. Yeah. That's actually really inspiring.
So I was on Tinder and I was swiping through and I saw this girl and she didn't have her age listed on her profile. Which
I'm going to make this woman my wife.
And it said like former adult film actress.
And that's when you knew.
And she was a weed. What does it call it? Dispensary worker in Illinois, in Chicago. And I sent her, and she also did like Irish dances.
Damn, you're into freaky girls.
Damn, she's very well rounded.
Oh. Just wait. So I sent her a message and then she didn't respond. Then I sent like a follow-up message or something like that. And it was clever, naturally, because obviously I produce clever content.
Sure.
And she was like, cool, blah, blah, blah. And so then we FaceTimed and we talked for like a half hour, like at 45 minutes or like maybe an hour or something like that. It was mostly her talking, which is fine. And she was saying like, she's like, yeah, I'm a former adult film actress. She lived in like Morocco for a period of time.
Was it Pokemon?
She had, no, this is no one that anyone would know. Although apparently she was nominated for a, what's it called? No, what's an adult?
Piker?
adult film award.
Yeah.
Still involved with Hassan Piker.
AFM or whatever, AMFA. She said, do you know who Dillian Harper is by any chance?
Dylan?
Is that a porn?
I think it's Dillian Harper.
Dylan Harper, the one who looks like a child, the one who is famous
for
looking like a teenager. Yeah.
Yes, I believe
that's her.
Chick I went on a date with said she did a scene with. Is it Dillian or Dylan?
It's Dylan.
Okay, I don't know why I think Dillian for some reason. Whatever. Point is.
Okay.
Point is. She talks and she's like, "You want to come over to my place? We can go thrift shopping." And she worked at a
That's a
dispensary.
good date. That's a good date.
I know. And I was like, "Oh, we can smoke weed." I've never sat down and experimented between indica and sativa. I've never like tried to smoke one and then smoke the other and see what the difference was. So I'm like, okay, worst case scenario, I'll go over to this porn star's place and we'll smoke.
Wait,
some
you
weed.
smoke weed?
I've smoked weed in the past. It's illegal in Texas, so I would never do anything illegal, and I've never done anything illegal ever.
Wait, what about
in any state?
Is it legal in?
It's legal in Illinois. Yeah.
Okay.
So I go over to her place, walk into her apartment. She's like, "Hey, what's up? Whatever. I'm gonna jump in the shower real quick, so just hang out here." Cool. So I'm sitting on her. Actually, the first thing I do is I walk into her. No, I know this happened later. Sorry. So I'm sitting on her couch and I'm looking through all of her weed shit or whatever while she's showering. This is great. And then we come out and then we start smoking. I put my feet up on her what do you call it?
Coffee got real comfortable.
Yeah. Got real she's like, "Get your fucking feet off my table." I was like, "Oh fuck." It's funny because every time I have friends over at my place, I'm always the anal about that shit of like, "Get your fucking feet off my."
But you were trying to be alpha.
Well, no, I just realized I'm like, "Oh, I'm an asshole. I see how obvious this is." And now
was your place messy?
I don't get mad. No, it was a pretty nice place. She had a lot of like art all over it and everything. But anyway, we're smoking weed and talking, and basically her whole vibe was like, I hate that people just try to sexualize me for being a porn star. I hate that people just want to have like, come over and want to have sex with me or whatever.
Why would she tell people then?
Because she's opening up.
Because I think she has to be.
Why?
I mean, you can't.
No, you don't have to be. Yes, you can hide it on the first couple days, and you should.
Maybe she trusts him. Maybe she trusts him.
Yeah,
or she wants to.
I'm a trustworthy person.
He's a trustworthy guy.
Listen, I don't
know why all these men want to fuck me, and my adult porn star thing is on my fucking account. Like, get over yourself.
Listen,
bitch.
I will come out looking good by the end of this. I think.
Okay.
Maybe not. But basically, we talked for like a couple hours. And she tells me all this stuff, and she opens up about all this different stuff, and how she's like, first off, it turned out she was like 30, and this was like a couple years ago, so I was like 23 maybe or something like that.
Okay.
And she's like 30 at the time, and she had like
smoking weed,
and she like made a ton of money and all this different stuff, and I'm like, God damn. She had been married, so she was divorced, and that was when that was when I clicked in my brain of like, God, she didn't have her age on her profile. Like I should have thought about this or whatever. But anyway, she kept saying, like, I'm looking for a partner. She kept saying this, like, I'm looking for a partner, like a business partner to help and invest in all these different ventures she was doing or whatever. She had like some sort of like therapeutic back massage device or whatever, allegedly for the back. I'm sure it was for other places as well. But anyway, we go thrift shopping. It was great and all that. I bought a bunch of stuff. Actually, I think there's like an 80 or 90% chance I got this from that thrift shop. I got a bunch of different shirts. I think this is one of them. And I got some coffee table books too. But she comes back and basically what I was saying earlier of like, this is one of those examples where it's like, okay, I came over kind of like, it'd be nice to like, hang out with porn star and see what happens. And she kept saying like, I hate how people are using me for sex or whatever. And that's when I was like, okay, it would be so fucking dishonest of me. And I would be a bad person knowing how much she's opened up to me to then try and continue this. So I was like, okay, I'm also pretty high at this point. And she's also a porn star. And so I'm kind of like, I don't know if I'm in a position to not embarrass myself in the bedroom with a porn star, but especially while high. And then we were also drinking wine as well. Anyway, these are all just rationalizations. But it got to the point where I was like, okay, I think I'm going to go hang out with my friends. And so she's like, it's like, I don't know, it's like 11 or something like that, maybe 10:30. And I'm like, hey, I think I'm going to leave pretty soon. And she like laughed at me like, haha. Like, oh, does she think I'm joking? And again, I was pretty high at this point. So I'm like, I'm not really good at reading social cues right now. So then like half hour later comes, hey, I'm going to go. And she goes, are you fucking joking? Like, are you fucking, you wasted my fucking night. And she gets up, she gets on the phone with her friend. She's like, hey, this fucking, like, what are you doing? This fucking douchebag just blew me over or whatever. I'm just sitting there like, what the fuck is going on or whatnot? And she goes over to her apartment door and she opens her door and she says, get the fuck out. Get the fuck out. And so I'm like, oh my God, I'm like freaking out. And I walk down and then she's got a little dog, a little chihuahua that she comes out. So I'm walking down the street back to my car and she comes out behind me and like on the street in front of like 5 or 6 people out there. She goes, have fun with your friends, you fucking asshole. I'm like, oh my God. And then I get in the car and she's texting me all this crazy shit. Like, you fucked me up. And I was like, God damn, you're freaking out here more than I thought. And then a few weeks later, I went and told my therapist. And I was like, man, I felt really bad about that. And And I since learned like, oh well, like I feel like that was the right thing to do, to not like let this person open up to me and then be like, oh yeah, I totally agree that it's so shitty that people would just want to fuck you for being a porn star. And then be like, so what are we doing
I feel
tonight?
like the fact that she was opening up to you about that is almost like it's almost like having a guilt-free conscience about what she was in the fact. In other words, like if you did follow through with that, her telling you that is almost a way to absolve herself, because it's like, well, I told him, I was honest. It's his decision.
Exactly.
You know
Which
what I mean?
and I kind of picked up.
So
on
that's
that.
probably why she was pissed at you.
And the thing was, is like I would never be in a relationship with her, not just because she was a sex worker, because I don't think that's a. I mean, me personally, I probably would not.
Something I've learned too from my experience.
Well, hold on. Let me just 1 sec.
Go for it.
I'll just finish this up. Of like, she was also like 7 years older than me and had like 5 times as much money than I did. And I told her, I'm like, you're financially more mature. You're just more. You're ahead of me in all these different ways in life. There's no way I could be in a relationship with you. But she was not having it. Yeah, and it's just like
it's intimidating. Maybe you were intimidated as well.
I was extremely intimidated,
but for the right reasons.
Yeah. So wait. Am I in the wrong?
How do I find a girl? How do I find a girlfriend?
Right.
She has to be submissive, poorer than me, can't have had that much sex,
No!
needs to be attractive, needs to. I'm like, dude, like, first of all, the level of self-awareness that this woman seems to have. I mean, she seems stupid. Like, she seems genuinely stupid. I don't know how you. I don't know how you hit 30. Cool. I don't know how you hit 30 and you're like, oh, I'm so sick of men objectifying me because I'm a porn star. And that's like one of the things that you start off saying with, like, don't fucking tell people then until you're like 3 dates in.
That's going to come up though. You'd rather get it out in the open, wouldn't you?
Yeah, it's going to come up. No, especially if you are worried, especially if you are worried about people doing what you did. No, you would not do that.
But that's why
I don't start with that.
But why? But then what if we got like 4 or 5 dates in and then she has to deal with it then later? Like,
and then it'll be worth it. But until then at least you can vet out the men who are trying to hit you up just to fucking sleep with you. Like,
it's almost a sign that she was down to fuck that night. Is the thing.
Yeah, she's sending you mixed messages.
Yes, but I think her point was not like I'm not willing to not have, like I'm not. She wasn't not willing to have sex on the first date. She just was like, I don't want to have sex with someone who's not interested, who just wants to like.
She wanted you to commit.
And again, like we were having like a full-on conversation for like 2-3 hours. That was.
She wanted you to commit.
Yeah.
Again, then why would you tell someone this until after? Like, that doesn't make any fucking sense.
My point was,
history is none of your business.
Listen, I just wanted to share the fact that I went on a date with a porn star.
You're so annoying.
That was really the purpose of that. I wasn't trying to facilitate any further discussion.
I'm gonna kill you. This is incredible.
Can I
go ahead, Greg. And by the way, I got to wrap up in about 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
We can hit up some final things.
I just want to add that, and maybe I want to get y'all's thoughts on this, or Leah, yours, but I feel like I've come to the conclusion that there's no shortcuts really when it comes to your desires for, like, if you want to have sex, right? I feel like there's no shortcuts. Like, there's no such thing as no strings attached, in the sense that there's always going to be somebody or both of you are going to develop feelings, and probably it's just not a good idea most of the time unless you're willing to like really stick it out, because no matter what you say or verbally agree to with someone, I feel like when you get that intimate, the emotions naturally are going to develop, because it is like this bonding. It is a sacred thing. I agree with that. And there's no shortcuts as a man to finding that, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think especially like putting in,
like
as a woman, putting yourself in a position like alone with a man, especially like a stranger or some man who is bigger than you, stronger than you. You're putting you're sacrificing a lot of your safety to just be like alone with this person. So that's a lot of weight, and people don't care. People don't talk about that weight. Like, you're putting your safety in some man's hands. You should trust him. You should trust each other. If you want to have sex with like your friends, if you want to have like a fuck buddy that's like ongoing, that's like a separate, I think that makes more sense, but that's also a separate issue, because I think the 9 times out of 10, the woman is going to develop feelings. But don't have casual sex. I don't think that casual sex is good for society. I don't think it's good for women.
There's the motto.
But also,
How to get a
jerking off is
girlfriend?
bad.
Don't have casual sex. So
Yeah, and-
Porn is
just
bad, too.
stay in your room and watch as much
No, that's the
Vosh
thing.
Destiny content as you possibly
Yeah.
can, and that will take you straight to the top.
Straight
Definitely
to hell.
not.
Take you straight to hell.
Definitely not. Maybe if you want a girlfriend, you can stop wearing thrifted Hawaiian shirts.
Oh,
Wow.
Damn.
That's
Straight
fucking
for
cute.
the jugular.
That's fucking hilarious.
Damn. That's fucked up.
No, it's fine.
I'm just kidding. I'm just
No,
kidding. It's
no,
beautiful,
I'm gonna
and I
get
love
some
it.
Satan tattoos all over my body. I'm sure that'll attract
Ooh.
exactly the right kind of man that I'm looking for.
Listen, I got the ring, baby.
Imagine like you're dating you have Satan tattoos, and then you're dating a girl, and the girl's dad is like, so what kind of guy is he? Oh, he's got some Satan tattoos on. I'm like, oh,
You know,
that's the right attitude.
There's a lot of
Connor's-
You
psycho-
ride a
Connor's
motorcycle
parents-
too?
Connor's parents don't know that I have any tattoos. I cover them all up when we go
Oh.
hang out with them.
That'll be
My
When they
wedding
find
day,
out-
keep
my
that
off
fake
the
forever.
shoulder, my off the shoulder wedding dress is gonna we're gonna get some head turns, but
Oh, that's
just
Yeah.
yeah, it's a numbers game. Just keep going out there, keep swiping
Carl,
on them in, and
So
I
why
agree.
do I say Carl? I see your name and I say
Paul.
Carl because of the
I know
Jung
Carl
part.
Jung. That's
Paul.
fair. That's acceptable. Yeah.
Dude, make a video, go out and do interview videos and talk
I've
to
been
girls.
thinking about that, dude. I've been thinking about that.
Even if you
You're-
don't even, yeah, it's just
you're-
good for practice.
Yeah, you're in Austin. Right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
my good buddy is moving to Austin, and I
Mm.
probably will visit there on more than one occasion. So we'll have to sync up.
Yeah,
at
I'm
some
down.
point. And I'd love to, because I'm trying to. I want to do street interviews. That's something I wanted to do. I'm just
Mm.
like in general, for whatever topic. And I got to figure out all the camera equipment, all that stuff for that. So we could, I'd love to learn from you, and we can sync up and we can do a. What do you think of Femoid on Twitter? We'll show a clip of Shea Guevara talking on the Whatever podcast. What do you think of this? And then we'll have some great content for that. Does
That'd be
that sound
funny.
good, Lav? Leah?
I'll join.
Can we use your name?
I'll
I
take
think
a
I
little,
need to
I'll
make-
take a little
You're in
trip.
Utah, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll go down to Austin.
I want when I see that it's not just that one, it's also Fresh and Fit. There is such a demand for like reasonable and interesting conversations between mature men and women. And I think that's slowly being trickled down through some of these things, but for the most part, they're just shock value and entertainment factor, and pretty like what's it called? Extreme positions most of the time. But if somebody makes a good one, and I don't think it's been done yet, it's going to be huge. I think there's a demand. There's a need
good
for that.
like podcast of that kind.
Yeah, like a
They're
better
probably
one than what
you
we've
know what?
seen.
There are probably some that are already out there, but because they don't have the viral moments.
Maybe.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you need a good balance though, but you can't
Yeah,
be
Fresh
selling
and
the
Fit.
messaging short. Fresh and Fit is too. I mean,
So
they're just
wild.
retards.
Yeah, I was thinking, when I was scoping out what Red Pill podcast I was going to go on, whatever felt way more tenable because Brian seems reachable, whereas
Yeah,
like the
I
Fresh and Fit guys are just so fucking lost and
They're up
so
their own
like
asses, right?
they're so like just completely cocooned in ego that they're just like there's no.
It's a good way to say it.
All
yeah.
of the Red Pill people need to watch more Jordan Peterson, unironically. And I think all of the you laugh.
Well,
Oh my God.
they also
This
need more.
fucking- What is
they
it?
need to be able to talk to-
These
Hate
Red
men?
Pill people need to talk to me.
They need to talk to girls.
Yes,
That's true. Well,
they need to talk to
Not
women and they need
gender
to
non-binary.
actually
Leah's
listen.
non-binary. Leah's
Not
non-binary, so
non-binary girls though.
Yeah.
I'm gonna clarify.
real women.
Yeah.
That's not a can of worms.
Yeah,
All right,
true.
for everyone watching, hold on. Leah and Greg, you can stick around. I'm gonna end the stream there for everyone watching. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. Thanks for joining us on the PFN Morning Show. No better way to start your day with a cup of coffee. Wake up on the weekends, get your circadian rhythm set, and feel good. Don't live the life that Leah and that other degenerates, not because of anything regarding their behavior, just their sleep habits alone are degenerate, right? We can all agree on that. Godspeed, everyone.